The massive station floated in the darkness of space like a giant wheel. Lights blinked along its surface, marking the docking bays where ships from across the galaxy waited. This was Station Valara, the meeting place for the Galactic Council. Today was special. Every year, all the different alien species came together for the Defense Summit. They talked about their armies, their weapons, and their power. Inside the main chamber, hundreds of aliens filled the seats. The room was huge, with a ceiling so high it seemed to touch the stars themselves. Holographic displays floated in the air, showing maps of the galaxy and military statistics. The noise was incredible. Species from every corner of known space talked loudly, argued, and boasted about their strength. Near the front sat the Vrakth. They looked like enormous reptiles with scales that shimmered in shades of green and gold. Their ambassador was particularly large, almost 3 meters tall, with sharp teeth visible even when his mouth was closed. He spoke loudly about the Vrakth military conquests, making sure everyone could hear him. The krill occupied several rows on the left side. They resembled insects with multiple arms and large compound eyes that reflected light in strange patterns. Their chittering language filled the air as they discussed their swarm tactics and the new weapons they had developed. The Thorian delegation sat in the middle, their blue-skinned bodies decorated with ceremonial armor. They were warriors by nature, and they loved to talk about battles and glory. Their representative was demonstrating a new plasma rifle to the species sitting nearby. At the very back of the chamber, almost unnoticed by the others, sat 2 humans. Hyunwoo wore a simple gray suit that looked plain compared to the elaborate outfits worn by other delegates. He was a thin man with dark hair, and he sat perfectly still with his hands folded on the table in front of him. His face showed no emotion as he watched the chaos unfold. Next to him sat Ji-won. She wore a military uniform, also gray, with no medals or decorations. Her hair was tied back neatly, and she held a small datapad in her hands. Her fingers moved across the screen occasionally, taking notes. She looked calm, almost bored. The Vrakth ambassador noticed the humans and pointed at them with one clawed hand. His voice boomed across the chamber, loud enough that many conversations stopped. "Look at the humans," he said, his words dripping with amusement. 2 representatives, just 2, and they sit at the back like scared children. Laughter rippled through the chamber. The krill chittered in their strange language, which their translators converted to mockery. The Thorians joined in, their deep voices adding to the noise. Hyunwoo did not react. He simply continued to sit quietly, his expression unchanged. Ji-won glanced at him briefly, then returned her attention to her datapad. A small, furry creature from the Pelton delegation called out, "How many ships did Earth bring to the galaxy?" 2, to match their delegation? More laughter. The Vrakth ambassador stood up, his full height making him tower over most of the other species. He walked toward the back of the chamber, his heavy footsteps echoing in the space. "Tell us, human," he said, stopping a few meters from Hyunwoo. "What great military force does your species command? What conquests have you achieved? What enemies have you crushed?" Hyunwoo looked up slowly. His voice was quiet but clear. "Earth prefers peace to war, Ambassador. We believe in cooperation, not conquest." The chamber erupted in noise again. Species laughed, shouted, and made jokes. The Vrakth ambassador threw his head back and roared with laughter. "Peace," he shouted. "The human speaks of peace. In a galaxy where the strong survive and the weak are eaten, they choose peace." A tall, thin alien from the Nexian Empire stood up. His skin was pale gray and his eyes were completely black. "Perhaps humans are prey species," he suggested. "They came to the galaxy hoping stronger species would protect them." The Thorian representative nodded. "They hide behind others. They have no honor, no warrior spirit." Hyunwoo remained calm. He had heard such words many times before. Ji-won continued typing on her datapad, apparently unconcerned with the insults flying around them. The council leader, a floating creature made of pure energy, called a luminary, called for order. Its voice echoed through translation devices. "We will now hear military capability presentations from each species. The Vrakth will begin." For the next several hours, species after species presented their military strength. The Vrakth showed videos of their warships destroying enemy planets. The krill demonstrated how their swarm tactics could overwhelm any defense. The Thorians displayed their newest battle cruisers, massive ships covered in weapons. Each presentation received applause and discussion. The species compared their strengths, argued about who was more powerful, and made alliances and threats in equal measure. Finally, the luminary's voice rang out again. Earth will now present their defensive capabilities. The chamber fell silent for a moment, then the noise returned as laughter. Species nudged each other and made jokes. The Vrakth ambassador remained standing near the human delegation, clearly waiting to mock them further. Yunwu stood up slowly. He was much smaller than most of the aliens in the room, but he walked to the presentation area with steady steps. Jiwan remained seated, her fingers still moving across her datapad. Yunwu stood at the podium and looked out at the assembled species. The room gradually quieted as everyone waited to hear what the human would say. Earth thanks the Council for this opportunity, Yunwu said. His voice was calm and professional. However, we must decline to present our military capabilities at this time. The silence lasted for exactly 2 seconds. Then the chamber exploded with noise. Aliens shouted questions, made jokes, and laughed loudly. The Vrakth ambassador's roar rose above all other sounds. Decline? He bellowed. The humans decline because they have nothing to show. They are weak. They are prey. Other species joined in the mockery. The Pelton representative suggested humans should be classified as a client species, dependent on others for protection. The Nexian delegate proposed that Earth should pay tribute to stronger species for the privilege of existing in the galaxy. Yunwu waited for the noise to die down. When he spoke again, his voice remained level. Earth believes in peaceful cooperation among all species. We do not seek to intimidate or threaten. We prefer to contribute to galactic society through diplomacy and mutual benefit. The Thorian representative stood up. Diplomacy without strength is begging. You have no place in this council if you cannot defend yourselves. Several species voiced their agreement. The Vrakth ambassador crossed his arms and stared at Yunwu with obvious contempt. Yunwu nodded slightly. We understand your position, he said. Earth nevertheless maintains its commitment to peace. He turned and walked back to his seat. The laughter followed him. As he sat down, Jiwan leaned toward him slightly. They exchanged a look that lasted only a moment. Hyunwoo's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in his eyes. Understanding, perhaps, or patience. Jiwan's fingers moved across her datapad. She pressed a sequence of icons, then a single button. The message she sent was encrypted and brief. Only 5 words. Show them who we are. The message traveled through space at faster than light speed, reaching its destination in seconds. Far from Station Valara, in the empty darkness between stars, something received that message. In the council chamber, the presentations continued. Other species showed their weapons and bragged about their power. The humans sat quietly at the back, ignored now that their moment had passed. Nobody noticed when Jiwan allowed herself the smallest smile. Nobody noticed that Hyunwoo's posture had relaxed slightly, as if a weight had been lifted. Nobody noticed that outside the station, in the vast emptiness of space, energy signatures were beginning to change. The humans remained quiet in their seats at the back of the chamber. The other species had already dismissed them as weak and irrelevant. They had no idea what was about to happen. They had no idea what sat behind the quiet humans waiting in the dark. The stage was set. The mockery had been delivered. Now the galaxy would learn the truth about humanity. 3 days had passed since the Defense Summit ended. The various species had returned to their homeworlds or their stations, still laughing about the weak humans who sat at the back and said nothing. The Vrakth ambassador had told the story, at least 20 times, always ending with roaring laughter about how humans preferred peace in a violent galaxy. But on the 3rd day, everything changed. The distress signal came through every communication channel at once. It was loud, desperate, and terrifying. The automated systems recognized it immediately as a priority emergency. Within minutes, every species in the Galactic Council had received the message. The Krill mining colony on Threshold 7 was under attack. Threshold 7 was a small planet on the outer rim of explored space. It was not beautiful. The surface was mostly gray rock and dust, but beneath that surface were valuable minerals that the Krill needed for their technology. Almost 10,000 Krill civilians lived and worked there, operating the massive mining machines that dug deep into the planet's crust. Now those civilians were dying. The emergency broadcast showed scenes of chaos. Krill workers ran through corridors as explosions rocked the facility. Ships rained fire from the sky, destroying defense turrets and communication arrays. The video feed was shaky and kept cutting out, but the message was clear. Pirates had attacked, and they were winning. The pirates were from the Dragoth clans. Everyone in the galaxy knew about the Dragoth. They were raiders and criminals who lived in the lawless regions beyond council control. They had no honor, no mercy, and no fear. Their ships were painted red and black, decorated with symbols of death and violence. The Dragoth had brought 50 warships to Threshold 7. The Krill colony had only 12 defense ships, and those had been destroyed in the first hour of fighting. Now the pirates were landing on the surface, rounding up civilians. They would take the Krill as slaves or kill them for sport. Everyone knew this. Everyone had heard the stories. The Galactic Council met in emergency session. The delegates appeared as holographic projections, since there was no time to gather everyone in person. The chamber that had been so loud and full of boasting 3 days ago was now filled with worried voices and angry arguments. The Krill ambassador was a female named Tikvara. Her compound eyes showed fear and desperation as she addressed the council. "Please," she begged. "My people are dying. We need help now. Every minute we delay, more civilians are killed or captured." The Luminary Council leader floated at the center of the projections. "We understand the urgency. Who will respond to this crisis?" Silence. The Vracht ambassador spoke first. "Threshold 7 is not in Vracht territory. It is far from our borders. We cannot justify sending our fleet so far for a colony that is not our responsibility." The Thorian representative agreed. "Our ships are engaged in training exercises. We cannot pull them away for this." One by one, the species made excuses. The Nexian Empire said they had no ships in that sector. The Pelton claimed their vessels were too small to fight the Dragoth effectively. The others talked about jurisdiction, about response time, about the cost of sending a military force across the galaxy. Tikvar's voice became high and desperate. "They are slaughtering my people. This is exactly why we have a council. This is why we meet and talk about defense. What is the purpose if you will not help?" The arguments continued. Species debated about whose territory the Threshold 7 sector actually belonged to. They discussed which fleet was closest and who should take responsibility. Minutes turned into an hour. While they talked, more Krill died. Hyun Woo and Ji Wan sat at the back again, watching and listening. They had said nothing during the entire debate. Finally, Hyun Woo raised his hand. The luminary noticed. "Earth wishes to speak." The chamber fell silent. Then came the familiar sounds. Laughter, mocking voices. The Vracht ambassador's roar of amusement. "The human wants to speak," someone called out. "Perhaps they will give us another lecture about peace." Hyun Woo waited for the noise to settle. When he spoke, his voice was calm and quiet, just as it had been 3 days ago. "Earth will handle this situation." For a moment, nobody reacted. They seemed confused by the words. Then the laughter started again, louder than before. The Vracht ambassador could barely speak through his mirth. "You will handle it? You? With what? Your 2 escort ships? Your commitment to peace?" The Thorian representative joined in. "Humans could not defeat a single Dragoth raider, let alone 50 warships. This is not a joke. Real lives are at stake." Tikvara looked at Hyun Woo with desperate hope in her eyes. "You would truly help my people?" Hyun Woo nodded. "We would. We will." The Nexian delegate's voice was cold. "This is ridiculous. The humans waste our time with fantasy. They have no fleet. They have no capability. They should not even be on this council." Ji-Won finally looked up from her datapad. Her voice was quiet but clear. "Transmitting coordinates now." The holographic displays in the center of the chamber flickered. The view changed from the council chamber to a view of space. Stars filled the screen, and in the center was Threshold 7. The planet looked small and gray, and around it swarmed the red and black ships of the Dragoth clans. The pirates were celebrating. Their ships flew in loose formations, firing at the planet's surface just for entertainment. Some were already docked, their crews on the ground looting and capturing Krill civilians. The largest ship, the Dragoth, flagship, floated above all the others like a predator surveying its kill. On the surface, emergency broadcasts still came through. The Krill begged for help that everyone thought would never arrive. The view on the display was being transmitted in real time. Every delegate could see exactly what was happening. They watched as the Dragoth continued their attack, confident and unopposed. Then space changed. It started as a shimmer, like heat waves in air. The area around the Dragoth fleet seemed to ripple and distort. Energy readings on the display spiked suddenly, showing massive power surges that made no sense. One of the Dragoth ships disappeared. One moment it was there, and the next moment it was simply gone, replaced by something else, something much bigger. Then another Dragoth ship vanished, replaced by another massive shape. Then another, and another. The Dragoth pirates noticed something was wrong. Their celebration stopped. Ships began to turn, trying to understand what was happening. Their sensors must have been screaming warnings. In 10 seconds, every Dragoth ship was surrounded. Where there had been 50 pirate vessels, there were now 100 ships total. 50 belonged to the pirates, the other 50 belonged to Earth. The council chamber was absolutely silent. Every delegate stared at the display, their eyes wide, their mouths open. Even the Vract ambassador made no sound. The human warships were enormous. Each one dwarfed the largest Dragoth vessel by a factor of 3. They were dark gray, almost black, with smooth surfaces that seemed to absorb light. No decorations, no bright colors, just pure functional design. They looked like they had been built for one purpose only: war. The ships had appeared from nowhere, materializing around the pirates in a perfect sphere formation. Not a single gap existed in their positioning. The Dragoth fleet was trapped, completely enclosed. A voice came through the communication channel. It was speaking in Korean, but the translators converted it instantly. The voice was male, calm, and carried the absolute confidence of someone who knew they held all the power. This is Admiral Tai Yang of the Earth Defense Fleet. Dragoth vessels, you are surrounded. You have 60 seconds to power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Any hostile action will result in your immediate destruction. You will release all Krill civilians unharmed. You will surrender peacefully. This is your only warning. The Dragoth clan leader's response came through a moment later. His voice was harsh and full of rage. Earth? Never heard of you. You think you can threaten the Dragoth clans? We are 50 warships strong. We fear no one. Admiral Tai Yang's reply was simple. 50 seconds remaining. The Dragoth leader screamed orders. The pirate ships opened fire. Missiles and energy beams launched from every vessel, all aimed at the human ships. The council delegates watched in horror, certain they were about to witness a massacre. They did witness a massacre, just not the one they expected. The human ships did not move. They did not need to. Systems that had been invisible suddenly activated. Point defense turrets appeared along every human vessel, thousands of them per ship. They fired so fast that the individual shots blurred together into solid beams of light. Every missile the Dragoth fired was destroyed before it traveled 100 meters. Every energy beam was intercepted by defensive fields that lit up like shields made of pure light. Not a single attack reached a human ship. Then the human ships fired back. Railguns. The weapons were called railguns, and they used magnetic force to accelerate solid projectiles to incredible speeds. When they fired, there was no bright beam or flashy explosion. There was just a brief flash, and then Dragoth ships simply came apart. The first volley destroyed 20 Dragoth vessels. They did not explode dramatically, they just broke into pieces, torn apart by projectiles moving too fast to see. The second volley came 3 seconds later and destroyed 15 more. The battle lasted 4 minutes from first shot to last. When it ended, 45 Dragoth ships were nothing but debris floating in space. 5 ships remained intact only because they had surrendered. The holographic displays continued to show the scene at Threshold 7. Human ships moved with smooth precision, forming a protective barrier around the planet, while rescue operations proceeded below. The 5 surviving Dragoth vessels sat motionless, their weapons powered down, their crews waiting in fear for whatever would happen next. On the surface, human soldiers in gray armor moved through the mining colony. They carried weapons but did not fire them. Instead, they administered medical aid to wounded krill, cleared debris from collapsed tunnels, and methodically arrested the Dragoth pirates who had landed. Everything happened quickly and efficiently, like a machine that had been built to function perfectly. In the council chamber, the delegates still could not speak. They watched the rescue operation and tried to process what they had just witnessed. Humans, the weak species that sat quietly at the back, had just destroyed 45 warships in 4 minutes. Humans, who claimed to prefer peace, had a fleet of 2,000 vessels hidden throughout the galaxy. The Vrakth ambassador was the first to find his voice. His usual booming confidence was gone, replaced by something that sounded almost like fear. "How did you hide this? How did we not know?" Ji-Wan stood up for the first time since the emergency session began. She walked to the center of the holographic display area, her military uniform looking simple compared to the elaborate outfits most delegates wore. But now that simplicity seemed different. It looked professional, purposeful. She touched her datapad and the displays changed. New information appeared, showing maps of the galaxy with marked locations, fleet positions, hidden stations, patrol routes, data that made several delegates lean forward in shock. Earth entered the galactic community 6 years ago, Ji-Wan began. Her voice was calm and educational, like a teacher explaining something to students. "We sent diplomats first, small delegations. We attended council meetings. We listened. We learned," the Thorian representative interrupted. "You spied on us." Ji-Wan shook her head. "No, we observed. Everything we learned came from public records, council meetings, and normal diplomatic exchanges. We simply paid attention." She touched her datapad again. The display showed images of various alien warships. Vrakth dreadnoughts, krill swarm fighters, Thorian battlecruisers, Nexian stealth frigates. Technical specifications appeared next to each image. "We studied your ships," Ji-Wan continued. "We analyzed your tactics. We watched how you fought, how you defended, how you attacked. Every species was happy to demonstrate their military power. You showed us your weapons at defense summits. You bragged about your capabilities. You gave us all the information we needed." The Luminary Council leader pulsed with bright light. "And you used that information to build weapons against us?" Hyunwoo stood up and walked to join Ji-Wan. "Not against you. For defense, and for this." He gestured to the display showing Threshold 7, where human ships were still rescuing krill civilians. The Pelton delegate spoke up, his furry face showing confusion. "But why hide? Why not tell us about your fleet? Why let us mock you and think you were weak?" Hyunwoo's expression remained neutral. "Because we needed to understand the galaxy before revealing ourselves. Earth learned long ago that appearing weak can be safer than appearing strong. When others underestimate you, they reveal their true nature." Ji-Wan nodded. "You told us everything." The Vrakth explained how they conquer smaller species. The Thorians described their battle philosophies. The Nexians discussed their stealth technology weaknesses. "You thought you were boasting? You were actually teaching us." She touched her datapad once more. The display changed to show a detailed breakdown of human ship types. There were dozens of different classes, each one specialized for specific purposes. "We designed our fleet based on what we learned," Ji-Wan explained. "These ships use counter-Vrakth armor ablation techniques. These carry electronic warfare systems that exploit gaps in standard galactic communication protocols. These deploy countermeasures specifically tailored to krill swarm navigation algorithms. We built our entire military strategy around the information you freely gave us." The Vrakth ambassador's scales had gone completely pale now. "You designed weapons specifically to fight us." Hyunwoo shook his head. "We designed weapons specifically to defend against anyone. The galaxy is dangerous. We saw that immediately. Species fight each other constantly. Pirates like the Dragoth prey on the weak. The Council argues while innocents die. We decided Earth would be ready." The Nexian delegate stood up, his black eyes reflecting no light. "This is a threat. You have built a war machine and hidden it from the Council. You should be expelled immediately." Several other delegates voiced agreement. The Thorians looked angry. The Pelton looked frightened. Even some of the smaller species seemed uncertain about whether humans were protectors or a new threat. Tikvara, the krill ambassador, suddenly spoke. Her voice was emotional, breaking with gratitude. They saved my people. While you all argued and made excuses, the humans acted. They risked their ships and their soldiers to save Krill civilians they had never met. How is that a threat? The luminary pulsed again, calling for order. The Krill ambassador makes a valid point. However, Earth has clearly violated the spirit of open cooperation among Council species. You maintained military secrecy. You gathered intelligence without disclosure. This demands an explanation. A new voice joined the conversation. It came through as a holographic projection that appeared next to Hyunwoo and Jiwon. The figure was a woman in a military uniform covered in insignia that clearly marked her as high-ranking. She looked to be in her 50s with gray in her dark hair and eyes that had seen many difficult decisions. "I am General Subin of the Earth Defense Fleet," she said. "I command all human military operations in this galaxy. If the Council wants an explanation, I will provide one." Every delegate focused on her projection. Even the Vrakth ambassador seemed to be paying careful attention now. General Subin began to speak. Her words were precise and direct. Earth emerged into a galaxy at war. Not official war, perhaps, but constant conflict. Territory disputes, resource battles, pirate raids, slavery. We watched smaller species get absorbed by larger ones. We saw the Council debate while crimes were committed. We realized that in this galaxy only the strong are safe. She paused, letting that sink in. But Earth did not want to become conquerors. We did not want to build an empire or dominate other species. We wanted to live in peace. So we made a choice. We would build strength in secret. We would become powerful enough that no one could threaten us, but we would not use that power for conquest. The Thorian representative spoke up. "Pretty words, but you still built weapons. You still prepared for war." General Subin nodded. "Yes, because peace requires strength. In this galaxy, the weak are victims. We chose not to be victims, but we also chose not to be aggressors." Jiwon touched her datapad again. New information flooded the displays. Operation reports, mission summaries, data that made several delegates gasp. "For the past 3 years," Jiwon said, "Earth has conducted 87 classified operations throughout the galaxy. We have destroyed 12 pirate bases. We have freed over 30,000 slaves from various criminal organizations. We have stopped 4 genocides that the Council was too slow to address. We have protected 17 mining colonies from raiders. We did all of this without announcing ourselves or demanding credit." The chamber was silent as delegates read through the reports. The evidence was overwhelming. Humans had been active throughout the galaxy, protecting innocent beings, stopping crimes, and eliminating threats, all in secret. Tikvara's voice was soft. "You have been defending others? Without telling anyone?" Hyunwoo nodded. "We did not do it for glory or recognition. We did it because it was right. Pirates threatened innocents. We stopped them. Slavers captured civilians. We freed them. Criminals operated without fear of consequences. We gave them consequences." The Vrakth ambassador struggled with his words. "But why? Why protect species you do not even know? What benefit does Earth gain?" General Subin's expression softened slightly. "Because it is the right thing to do. Earth learned a long time ago that true strength is not about dominating others. It is about protecting those who cannot protect themselves. We built our fleet not to conquer but to defend. Not just Earth, but anyone who needs help." She touched a control and the display showed Threshold 7 again. The rescue operation was nearly complete. Krill civilians were being loaded onto human medical ships. The injured were receiving treatment. Engineers were already repairing damaged facilities. The Dragoth prisoners sat in secured areas, guarded but not harmed. "This is who we are," General Subin said. "We do not seek war. We do not desire empire. But we will not stand by while innocents suffer. We will not let pirates operate freely. We will not allow the strong to prey on the weak without consequence." The Pelton delegate asked the question many were thinking. "What do you want from the Council?" Hyunwoo answered. "Respect. Recognition. An honest relationship where we are treated as equals, not as weak prey. We have proven we can defend ourselves and others. We ask only to be acknowledged for what we are." The luminary considered this. "And what are you?" Jiwon spoke quietly but firmly to me. The emergency council session continued for another 3 hours. Question after question came from the delegates. Some were angry, some were fearful. Many were simply trying to understand how humans had accomplished something that seemed impossible. The Nexian delegate demanded to know exactly where all 12 human fleet anchorages were located. General Subin politely refused to provide those coordinates. Earth will gladly share information about our defensive capabilities, she said. But we will not reveal the locations of our strategic assets. Just as I am certain the Nexian Empire does not share the locations of all its military bases. The Nexian delegate could not argue with that logic, though his expression showed he wanted to. The Thorian representative asked about human combat doctrine. How did they train? What tactics did they use? Were they willing to share military knowledge with other species? Jiwan answered carefully. Earth is willing to cooperate with Council species on matters of mutual defense. We can provide training in anti-piracy operations. We can share intelligence about criminal organizations. But we will not give away our military advantages. Every species protects its own security. We do the same. The Pelton delegate raised a small furry paw. What about the technology? Your ships appeared from nowhere. Your weapons destroyed the Dragoth in minutes. How advanced is human technology compared to ours? Hyunwoo fielded this question. Earth did not invent new physics or discover unknown sciences. We took existing galactic technology and improved it. We found inefficiencies and corrected them. We identified weaknesses and solved them. Much of what you saw today uses principles that any species could have developed. We simply chose to focus on practical military application. This was not entirely reassuring to the delegates. It meant humans had taken standard galactic technology and made it significantly better in just a few years. That suggested human engineering and innovation capabilities were exceptional. The Vrakth ambassador finally spoke again. His voice had lost its booming confidence. He sounded tired and perhaps a bit humbled. I owe the humans an apology. I mocked you. I called you prey. I was wrong. Hyunwoo nodded in acknowledgement. Apology accepted, Ambassador. You judged based on the information you had. We deliberately gave you incomplete information. That was our choice and our strategy. The Vrakth ambassador looked uncomfortable. Why did you let us mock you? For 3 years you attended council meetings while we insulted Earth. You never once defended yourselves. Why? General Subin answered this one. Because words cannot hurt us, but revealing our capabilities prematurely could have. Earth needed time to establish our fleet, to learn the galaxy, to understand all the major powers and threats. If we had announced ourselves early, before we were ready, we might have become a target. Species might have formed alliances against us. The council might have demanded we disarm. Staying quiet and accepting mockery was safer than showing strength before we were prepared. The luminary pulsed thoughtfully. A wise strategy, perhaps. But it was also deceptive. The council operates on trust among species. Earth violated that trust. Hyunwoo shook his head. With respect, the council operates on power. We have attended 3 years of meetings. We have watched species threaten each other, make territorial demands, and refuse to help those in need. The council did not help the Krill today. They argued about jurisdiction while civilians died. Earth took action because it was right, not because it was politically convenient. Several delegates looked uncomfortable at this assessment, probably because it was accurate. Tikvara stood up, her insect-like body trembling slightly. The humans speak truth. My people begged for help and the council debated. Only Earth acted. Only Earth risked their ships and soldiers for Krill they had never met. I propose that Earth be given full voting rights in the council and a permanent seat on the Security Directorate. This caused another wave of discussion. The Security Directorate was the most powerful body in the council. It made decisions about military actions, peacekeeping operations, and enforcement of galactic law. Only the 7 strongest species held permanent seats. Other species rotated through temporary positions. The Thorian representative objected immediately. The directorate seats are earned through centuries of service and proven capability. Earth has been in the galaxy for only 6 years. This is too fast. But the Pelton delegate disagreed. Earth just demonstrated more military capability than most directorate members. They also demonstrated moral courage by acting when others would not. Perhaps they have earned it. The debate continued. Some species supported Earth's elevation to greater council authority. Others worried about giving too much power to a species they had barely begun to understand. The humans sat quietly and let the discussion proceed. Finally, the Luminari called for a vote. It was not binding, just a measure of council sentiment. When the votes were counted, 63 species supported giving Earth a permanent security directorate seat. 41 opposed. 22 abstained. The luminary announced the result. While this is not an official appointment, it demonstrates significant council support. Earth, will you accept a permanent seat on the Security Directorate pending formal approval procedures? Hyunwoo and General Subin exchanged glances. Then Hyunwoo spoke. Earth accepts this honor. We will work to deserve the trust that many species have placed in us. The Vrath ambassador spoke up again. I would like to request a private meeting with the Earth delegation. There are matters I wish to discuss. Hyunwoo nodded. We will make ourselves available, Ambassador. Over the next few days, everything changed for humanity and the galactic community. The mockery stopped completely. Species that had laughed at Earth now treated human delegates with careful respect. Some of this respect came from admiration. Much of it came from fear. The Vrath ambassador met with Hyunwoo and Jiwon in a private conference room on Station Valara. He came alone without his usual entourage of assistants. When he spoke, his voice was quiet and serious. I need to know something, he said. If it had been Vrath civilians on Threshold 7 instead of Krill, would you have saved us? Even after I mocked your species? Even after I called you prey? Hyunwoo did not hesitate. Yes, without question. Earth does not base its decisions to help on whether we have been insulted. We help because it is right. The ambassador was silent for a moment. Then he said, The Vrath Empire wishes to establish a formal alliance with Earth. We would like to discuss mutual defense agreements and technology sharing. Over the following weeks, similar requests came from dozens of species. The Thorians wanted to train with human forces to learn their tactics. The Pelton asked for Earth's help in defending their shipping routes from pirates. Even the Nexians, who had been most suspicious of human intentions, quietly approached about intelligence-sharing agreements. Jiwon found herself giving presentations to military officers from multiple species. She explained human point defense systems, demonstrated the effectiveness of railgun technology, and discussed strategic planning principles. She was careful not to reveal everything, but she shared enough to help other species improve their own defenses. General Subin established the Galactic Defense Initiative, a cooperative program where human forces would work with other species to combat piracy, slavery, and other criminal activities. 12 species signed up within the first month. Human ships began operating openly throughout the galaxy, no longer hidden, but serving as a visible deterrent to those who would prey on the innocent. The Krill held a formal ceremony to thank Earth for saving their colony. Tikvara presented Hyunwoo with a crystal sculpture, a traditional Krill symbol of eternal friendship. You did not have to help us, she said. But you did anyway. The Krill will never forget this. You will always have our friendship and our loyalty. Not everyone was happy with humanity's new position. Some species worried that Earth was too powerful, too secretive, too different from the established galactic order. There were debates in the council about whether humans should be required to reveal all their military assets. Some delegates proposed inspections of human fleet anchorages to verify that Earth was being honest about their capabilities. Hyunwoo addressed these concerns in a public council session. Earth understands your worries. A new powerful species is concerning, but consider what we have done with our power. We have freed slaves. We have stopped pirates. We have protected the innocent. We have not conquered territory. We have not demanded tribute. We have not threatened anyone. Judge us by our actions, not by your fears. General Subin added her own statement. Earth will continue to maintain military secrecy about specific capabilities and locations. This is standard for any military force, but we will be transparent about our intentions. We are defenders, not conquerors. We seek cooperation, not domination. Any species that approaches us with honest friendship will receive the same in return. The Pelton delegate asked a question many were thinking. What if Earth changes? What if a future human government decides to use your fleet for conquest instead of defense? How can we trust that you will always be peaceful? It was Jiwon who answered. You cannot trust that we will always be peaceful. Just as we cannot trust that any other species will always be peaceful. The Vrath were conquerors once. The Thorians still glorify war. The Nexians maintain 6 months had passed since the incident at Threshold 7. The galaxy had settled into a new reality, where humans were no longer the quiet, ignored species sitting at the back of council meetings. Earth now held a permanent seat on the Security Directorate, and human ships patrolled trade routes throughout known space. The change was remarkable, Pirates who had operated freely for decades suddenly found themselves hunted by efficient, relentless human forces. Slave markets that had existed on lawless worlds were raided and destroyed. Criminal organizations that had bribed their way out of trouble discovered that human investigators could not be corrupted. The galaxy was becoming safer, and everyone knew who was responsible, but not everyone was happy about it. A faction of species had formed in opposition to Earth's growing influence. They called themselves the Independent Coalition. Their public statements talked about maintaining galactic balance and preventing any single species from becoming too powerful. Their private conversations were less diplomatic. They feared humans and wanted to limit Earth's authority. The coalition was led by a Nexian diplomat named Vex Till. He was clever and political, skilled at making arguments that sounded reasonable while hiding his true intentions. He gave speeches at the council about the importance of collective security, rather than relying on one species. He proposed regulations that would require all military forces to report their positions and capabilities to the council. Everyone knew these proposals were aimed at Earth. Hyunwoo attended every meeting where Vex Till spoke. He listened carefully, took notes, and said very little. When he did speak, his words were diplomatic and mild. He agreed that galactic balance was important. He supported the principle of collective security. He never directly challenged Vex Till's proposals, but he also never agreed to the specific regulations being suggested. This frustrated Vex Till. He wanted to provoke humans into appearing aggressive or unreasonable. Instead, Hyunwoo remained perfectly calm and diplomatic, agreeing with principles while avoiding commitments that would limit Earth's capabilities. Ji-won found the political maneuvering exhausting. After one particularly long council session, she spoke with Hyunwoo privately. "Why do we let him talk?" she asked. "Vex Till is obviously working against us. Why not just shut down his proposals directly?" Hyunwoo smiled slightly. "Because he is not wrong about everything. Galactic balance is important. No single species should have unchecked power. Even Earth. We must be careful not to become what we oppose. But his regulations would cripple our ability to respond quickly to threats," Ji-won pointed out. "If we have to report every ship movement to the Council, we lose our strategic advantage. Which is why we will not agree to those specific regulations," Hyunwoo said. "But we can support the general principle while negotiating the details. Politics is about finding solutions that everyone can accept, even if no one gets exactly what they want." The debate continued for months. Proposals were made, amended, and debated again. Humans engaged in the process honestly, offering compromises and suggestions. They agreed to regular reports on fleet numbers and general locations, but not specific positions. They supported the creation of an independent monitoring agency, but insisted it must have representatives from all species, not just those in the coalition. Slowly, the more extreme proposals were watered down. The coalition began to fracture as some species realized that humans were willing to work within reasonable limitations. The Pelton withdrew their support for strict regulations after Earth helped them defeat a major pirate incursion. The Thorians decided they preferred having humans as allies rather than trying to restrict them. Eventually, Vex Till found himself isolated. His coalition had shrunk to just a handful of species, and even those were wavering. In a final council session, he made one last attempt to limit human power. "Earth maintains secret fleet anchorages throughout the galaxy," he declared. "They refuse to reveal locations. They refuse to accept inspections. How can we trust a species that operates in such secrecy?" Hyunwoo stood to respond. His voice was calm as always, but there was steel underneath. "The Nexian Empire maintains 147 intelligence outposts throughout the galaxy. You refuse to reveal their locations. You refuse inspections. By your own logic, how can we trust you?" The chamber fell silent. Vex Till's face went pale. "That information was supposed to be secret," Hyunwoo continued. "Earth has intelligence capabilities. We know where most species maintain their secret assets. We know about hidden bases, covert operations, and classified projects. We could reveal all of it to this council. But we do not, because every species deserves the right to maintain strategic secrecy for legitimate security purposes. We ask only for the same consideration we extend to others." Vex Till tried to recover. "That is different. The Nexian intelligence network protects the Empire's interests. It is defensive. As is the human fleet, Hyunwoo replied. We have demonstrated through our actions what we use our military power for. Defense of the innocent, protection of trade routes, elimination of criminal threats. Our record speaks for itself. Judge us by what we do, not by your imagination of what we might do. The Luminary Council leader pulsed brightly. Earth makes a valid point. All species maintain some level of military secrecy. Earth has been more transparent than most about their general capabilities, while maintaining appropriate operational security. This council sees no reason to impose regulations on Earth that we do not impose on ourselves. The vote was not even close. Vextil's proposal was defeated by a wide margin. The independent coalition dissolved shortly after, its member species quietly returning to normal council participation. Life in the galaxy continued to evolve. Human culture spread further as more species engaged with Earth. Restaurants serving human food appeared on dozens of worlds. Human music became popular among the Pelton, who loved the complex rhythms. Human movies and shows were translated into hundreds of languages. Young aliens learned about Earth history and were fascinated by humanity's long journey from a single planet to the stars. Trade boomed. Earth's agricultural technology helped several species improve their food production. Human medical advances saved lives throughout the galaxy. Engineering innovations made space travel safer and more efficient. Earth became not just a military power but an economic and cultural force. But the humans never forgot what had brought them respect. Their fleet remained strong and ready. Training exercises continued. New ships were built. Intelligence networks monitored threats. Earth maintained its peaceful stance while keeping its military sharp. Admiral Taeyang became something of a legend. Stories spread about the human admiral who had destroyed 45 pirate ships in 4 minutes without losing a single vessel. Young officers from other species requested to train under him. He accepted some of these requests, teaching willing students about discipline, strategy, and the importance of protecting innocence. General Subin expanded the Galactic Defense Initiative. More species joined the program. Human forces conducted joint operations with Thorian warriors, Pelton security teams, and even some Vrath units. The cooperation built trust and understanding between species that had never worked together before. Tikvara, the Krill ambassador, became one of Earth's strongest advocates. She spoke at council meetings about how humans had saved her people when no one else would. She proposed joint research projects between Earth and other species. She worked tirelessly to build bridges between humans and those species still uncertain about Earth's role in the galaxy. The Vrath ambassador, who had once mocked humans so openly, became a surprising friend to Earth. He had learned respect the hard way, and that respect had grown into genuine admiration. The Vrath Empire and Earth signed a mutual defense treaty. Vrath warships began training with human vessels. Cultural exchanges brought Vrath artists to Earth and human musicians to the Vrath homeworld. 1 year after the Threshold 7 incident, the Council held a commemoration ceremony. They honored the Krill civilians who had survived and remembered those who had died. They recognized the species that had helped in rescue and recovery efforts. And they specifically thanked Earth for acting when others had hesitated. Hyunwoo attended the ceremony with Ji-won. They stood together as the Luminary Council leader spoke about courage, about sacrifice, and about the importance of acting according to one's principles even when it is difficult. When the ceremony ended, species approached the human delegates. They shook hands or performed equivalent gestures of respect from their own cultures. They spoke of friendship and cooperation. They offered thanks for Earth's protection of the innocent. Later, Hyunwoo and Ji-won walked through Station Valara. The station that had once felt hostile now felt welcoming. Aliens of dozens of species nodded respectfully as they passed. Some called out friendly greetings. The humans were no longer outsiders sitting at the back. They belonged here. They found themselves back at the observation deck where they had stood months before. The stars still shone with the same light, but everything else had changed. We did it, Ji-won said softly. We changed the galaxy. Hyunwoo nodded. We showed them who we are. That is all we needed to do. Do you think the mockery is truly over?